What's up, guys? We are back with another video today. This one is an important topic to discuss because as a person who wants to develop themselves, a person that's watching this channel, and we've talked about the phenomena of social contagion. It's a scientific fact that the people that you are around, women will adjust their menstrual cycle to that of the other women that they're in close proximity with. This happens every single time. That's the way that we've evolved as humans. People sweat. The sweat coming out of their sweat glands will influence us on a physical level. The stress, the hormones that people are carrying in their body. We talked about the other day how if somebody in a group is getting divorced, statistically, there's significant statistic, a statistic that other people in that group are going to then get a divorce, right? So we understand on this level of science is proving that we are massively impacted by those around us. We kind of already knew this on an energetic level, and the madness of groups, the madness of groupthink is something that you see, this phenomena, you see it happen all the time. It's very visible actually on social media and in our current day and age, because as soon as one person starts a character assassination on somebody, everybody else follows suit like a sheep. And it happens with music. It happens with people like a certain song, but it's only after it's picked up steam and everybody else is looking constantly to see what everybody else thinks about something. And when they resonate, when people develop an association, they develop a feeling of belonging to a certain group, they will almost, if they're a weak personality, they will almost get rid of their own values, that get rid of their own thoughts, get rid of their own opinions in favor of the group's opinion. So it's something to be very, very aware of. Now I'm going to play this clip from Chris Williamson interviewing Robert Greene, where Robert Greene explains this phenomena that he talks about in his book. So here
The
we
madness
go.
of groups. Never relinquish your ability to doubt, reflect, and consider other options. Your rationality as an individual is your only protection against the madness that can overcome a group.
Well, what often happens is if you're an individual and you're entertaining an idea, you might be a little bit skeptical and you might tell yourself, maybe that's not the best idea. Maybe after a couple hours, you see from another angle and you go, maybe I shouldn't follow that path. That doesn't seem quite right. But in a group setting, the very opposite happens. When a group starts entertaining an idea, that ability to step back and detach and to analyze it suddenly goes out the window, right? Because other people are focusing on this idea and you get caught up in the group.
Yeah, so your ability to objectively analyze a situation, like he said, it literally goes out the window. Recently, we see people, something came out. Honestly, it's so trivial and so misguided, really. When you see the world that we live in right now with cancel culture, the way that people will viciously hop on the bandwagon and attack people because of something that was said, or one person said something. It's like, what happened to being innocent until proven guilty? That in and of itself is very indicative of this type of mentality.
And suddenly everybody is signing off on this idea and not reflecting on the possible negative consequences. So if you're an individual and you choose a particular path and it fails, you're going to pay terrible consequences. The stakes are high. So naturally, you're going to think more deeply about the possibilities. But when you're in a group and the boss is advocating some kind of ridiculous scheme that everyone's kind of buying off on, in the back of your mind, you go, if this is wrong, if it fucks up, well, I'm not going to blame because it's everybody else there. So all these kind of group mentalities start kicking in, and it's kind of a madness. It's a kind of delusionary process. If you as an individual went through that delusionary process, you would be homeless. Your life would be a complete wreckage right now, right? If every time you thought of some idea, you immediately convinced yourself it's brilliant, it has to work, and I'm not going to pay any consequences, you would probably be dead. But in a group setting, you can get away with that. Oh, yes. And then how many Hollywood meetings, when I worked in Hollywood before, did I actually see?
And you find that people encourage each other. In a toxic workplace environment, those behaviors are encouraged from the top down. If the authorities in that space are encouraging that, whether it could be anything. It could be, sexual harassment at work. It could be alcoholism. It could be gossip in the workplace. It could be, you see hazing happen in fraternities, right? And that's actually a great example, is the terrible, terrible things that go on when you're in that position and you want the approval of your peers. You want to be around people that say, hey, this is okay. And young men have been killed by these hazing practices that go on in some of these situations by overdosing on alcohol, alcohol poisoning, and drinking themselves to death. Acts of violence, acts of sexual abuse that go on in these things. And instead of the thing is that all rationality, like he's saying, goes out the window, because now you've alleviated this accountability. You're in a mindset that says, oh, well, the group is doing this, so if it's a group, there's safety in numbers. I don't have to actually look at what I'm doing, take responsibility, and reflect upon my actions, because I'm going along with what this group does. And I've abdicated my authority, really, to the group, to the leaders of the group, and I'm just going along with this. And it's very, very it's a very, very slippery slope. I mean, I remember in high school, we would do these boxing matches, and we went to this one kid's house. His parents were like they had like a barn, they had a bunch of farmland, and so all of us, we would be out there drinking and stuff, and there would be these boxing matches, right? And of course, like a bunch of high school kids, and tons of alcohol, and boxing matches might not be the best combination of ingredients. I think for the most part, they probably, especially between guys, I would have hoped. I only attended like a couple of these. They would do them all the time, but there was this one where it was two girls that were fighting, and it got to the point where the one was on top of her, and she was just pounding her face into the pavement. And I remember this, and I remember like trying to cut through the crowd to actually stop them, but the crowd was so thick that I couldn't do it. And I really was actually very concerned that she was gonna get, the back of her head was getting pounded into the pavement, and that could have been really terrible. A really terrible thing could have happened. And thankfully she was all right. But these types of things, I'm just giving you a couple examples here of what can happen and what can occur. And let's listen to the rest of
this. With my own eyes, is very dynamic, where some really bad script was being entertained by some producer, but because the producer liked it, everyone was now like, felt the need to kind of say, yes, I think it's pretty good, even though everybody knew it was a shit script. And suddenly, this thing that you thought was the worst movie that ever was, this worst script that's ever written, is now being passed into production. It's going to happen. And nobody in that group meeting kind of raised their hand and said, Mr. Producer, I think there's some things that really need to be changed. I think the whole idea is actually pretty rotten. It's not going to work very well. If one person had done that, then maybe something would change. But the whole group signs off on it, and this really pathetic, stupid movie actually gets made. Believe me, I saw that time and again. So groups have a kind of madness, kind of delusionary process, where the consequences of what could go wrong are suddenly spread out about so many people, and you get drawn in to the kind of group mentality where it's natural. You don't want to be that one person saying, no, I don't think this might be so good, because you're going to be maybe ostracized. People are going to wonder about you. So it creates this kind of insanity dynamic in a group, and it's very dangerous.
What's the solution then as an individual? How do you play that game?
Well, as an individual, you have to have, well, first of all, the most important thing, this is what I do in my consulting, I say, it really starts from the boss, from the person who's like going to spread the bad idea among the group, right? That you have to realize that you don't want a bunch of yes men and yes women around you. You want to create a dynamic in which people can raise their hand and say, this idea is shit, Mr. Boss, even though you might fire me. That's a sign, that's a strong character that we're talking about. So it really starts at the top, right? Where that person is able to create a group dynamic where some kind of air from the outside is let in and people can actually express some of their true opinion. And if you're caught in that kind of dynamic where it's the boss is like that, it's very dangerous and very delicate, because your job might be on the line. So maybe you kind of sign off on the group dynamic so you're not fired, so you still can have a paycheck and pay for your food and clothing, etc. But in your mind, you don't seduce by it. You create some distance. You go, I know this is a bad idea. I'm not going to get sucked into it. I'm not going to get personally involved in it. And any time in the process, if I can bring in a little word of criticism or a little breath of fresh air, I'm going to try and do it. I'm not going to emotionally invest myself in this group madness.
Suffer fools.
All right. A couple really great points in there. Yes, it's a top-down thing. The standards created by the authority in that space are going to set the tone of that environment, that particular environment. And so, yeah, in the workplace, or whatever it might be, it again, the character thing, the weak character and strong character, we going back to the topic of suffering fools gladly, which they're touching on here as well. The definition of a fool, again, is somebody who can't take criticism, somebody who is unwilling to take criticism. And that is the sign of a fragile ego and of weak character. And so if your boss in the workplace can't take any form of criticism and it lashes out at people that tell him anything, again, that's a sign that you're dealing with a weak-minded person, because somebody that is strong, somebody that is wise and wants to do the right thing is going to be glad when somebody points out areas for improvement, in the moment. And it also depends on how they're pointed out. Of course, nobody's going to respond well to an attack, a verbal attack, anyone that's going to arouse anyone's defenses. But if it's stated in a way where it's constructive, it said, hey, look, this really wasn't the best thing, or this is really not creating like a positive environment. Somebody that has that strong character, somebody that is willing to improve, that is the sign of a strong character. And unfortunately, with this group dynamic, if you were caught in a workplace or in an environment where there is this toxic, narcissistic, weak person, really weakness masquerading as strength, somebody that's trying to throw their weight around, somebody that's trying to basically be manipulative, and you can tell, right, through the things that we've been saying about the fool, about all these different type of archetypes of people, you can pretty much get a good idea of who you're dealing with. This type of ego-based person is, again, that's a key indicator when somebody can't take any form of criticism, even when it's constructive, that you are dealing with a person like this. And again, this is going to be where, like he mentions, you're going to have to slowly distance yourself from that. And that's why, again, this trend that a lot of people are saying about your coworkers are not your friends, it's very valid. And it really is. If you are going and befriending these people just because they're in the workplace and telling them all of your business and all of the ins and outs of your personal life, you just get set up, get prepared for a massive disappointment, possibly betrayal, possibly any of these things. Most people are unhappy. Most people walking around today are not happy with themselves. They want to pull out information from other people to make themselves feel better about themselves. They want to find the nitty-gritty details about your life. And those types of people, it's very important to have your guard up, because people that are looking to find out intimate details about your life, or people that are giving and telling you, oh, you should do this, you should do that, oh, you deserve, people that are breadcrumbing you, either with the promise of something better. It could be a boss in the workplace, or it could be coworkers in the workplace that are telling you, basically giving you advice about your relationships, about relationships that are much stronger, of your intimate relationships with your family, with your loved ones. Those people that are trying to insert themselves into your life, it's very important to be very wary of that. So with that being said, we've gone over multiple things. You also see it in the police force when people are, all this stuff that's happened lately over the past several years with the police and this whole backlash against police. A lot of it has to do with these kinds of toxic figureheads, these people setting the pace in these environments that says, hey, this is okay. This way of treating people is okay. And you really have to be either a stick in the mud in that environment and call out wrong things, wrong behavior when you see it, or you have to fall away from that environment. You have to find yourself a better environment where there's going to be better influences. And I would honestly argue the latter. If you can remove yourself from the environment completely, that's going to be your best option, because like we said, the studies prove it. We know on an energetic level that this is happening. This is affecting us, people's energies, people's opinions, people's vibes. We're picking up on this all the time. And again, that video that I posted recently, where show me who your friends are, and your friends in this case being the people that you're around. And if you're in that toxic work environment more often than not during the week, that's going to be your set point. That's going to be your new base of where your opinions become generated from, because of this groupthink madness. It is very hard to resist that. It is very, no matter how strong of a person you are, you're going to be influenced by the people around you. You're going to be influenced by the information you're taking in. And that's why I've been posting these videos showing the different angles of this and how this actually affects you, and on such a deep level. So being aware of it and then making your decision to cut off those people from your life is really going to be an important piece of this. It's going to be extremely important. And having that ability to do the self-reflection on your own time and think what exactly makes sense. Like he said before, as an individual, you can be skeptical of these things, but once you bought into the group think, once you bought into the values that these people have, that's how cults are. That's how people end up doing terrible things and ruining their lives, because they bought into a false reality, a false narrative that somebody's telling them. So you really have to have an alert head on your shoulders and be aware, and again, remove yourself from people like this. You want to cultivate people around you that are genuine, people that are free thinkers, people that can think for themselves, not people that are bought into a group mentality like this, because it is very insane, the things that they can begin to justify. Anyways, guys, much love as always. I hope this has been of value to you. Drop me a like, hit me with a comment, hit me with a subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.